And thank you everybody in the audience for having me. Arigato gozaimasu. And what I would like to do is explain to you a little bit more about what STM annually does as a future forecast of the technology trends that we think will play an important role in our industry. And every year we do that by bringing together a group of experts who make forecasts for the next 3 to 5 years. And we've been doing that several years. And instead of writing very thick, long reports, we try to summarize our findings or our projections in one picture, in one infographic. And I'm very happy to be able to show you today the picture as we've made it for this year. I see somebody ask me something. Yeah, okay. Let me continue. Sorry for this brief intermission. Let me show you what the picture of this year is. The theme of this year is focus on the user, connect the dots. And what you see here is a starry sky, a galaxy, a universe, with the user as its point of gravity firmly in the middle. Everything circles around the user. And in the rest of the picture, you see connected stars. It's a starry sky. And what we try to do here with the stars is show you a knowledge graph. And for people less familiar with knowledge graphs, they're a way of depicting knowledge by relating all the important elements with each other. And usually it's a dynamic picture which can turn around and you can look at it from different perspectives, different lenses, and depending on the lens you use, you'll get different connections. So this is a static picture, but just imagine that you could travel through it, look at it from different sides, and then all the time explore new connections between certain dots. And that is also why our motto is connect the dots. And you see the user here in the middle, and around the user, you see 7 circles that define the user of tomorrow. And before I explain more about the user and how we think the user will want her or his information and how the user will behave, let me take you through the process of how we come to a picture like this. Here is the English version. I started by showing the Japanese. We have very kindly one of our members always available to translate it into Japanese. You can find both versions on the STM website, and they print very nicely on an A3 poster format. Now let me show you the process. How we come to this picture is very much group work. And for many years now, we've been gathering in December in London every year. I think, unfortunately, this year that will not be possible. But you can see here that in December last year, life was very different. It was before the pandemic was striking us. And we had our usual meeting with around 30 people coming to London, and I'm very grateful for Springer Nature because they always host us and they provide us a very nice room for that. And these people are all technology related people working in the publishing companies of our members. And it's mostly senior staff who work in business development, in technology, in strategy. They work on their platforms, they work on IT. Roughly 2/3 of the people come back every year. Roughly 1/3 is new, so we have nice fresh views as well. But also a lot of people who like the meeting so much that they come year after year after year. And these people, we lock ourselves up for usually half a day, sometimes even a bit longer. And we have lively discussions. And we use the Delphi method. I'll tell you a bit more about that later. And at the end of the day, we form an editing committee this year's editing committee, you see the names of the people on the left-hand side of the slide. They also come from different organizations. And the editing committee, after the meeting, takes a few more weeks to synthesize it all and to converge it into one picture and one theme. Now, how does that brainstorm take place? We use the so-called Delphi method. You can find a lot more about it on the internet. There's a whole wiki page on the Delphi method. It's a well-known forecasting technique. It exists and has existed for 60, 70 years now. It was particularly popular during the 50s, during the 60s of last century. And in those days, it was used, especially in the then Cold War geopolitical environment, when people wanted to predict what the defense technology developments would be at the other side, at the enemy's side, so that they could also build their own scenarios on that. Well, we use the same Delphi method, but of course for a far more peaceful purpose. We use it to predict what might be the big changes in our industry from a technology standpoint, what might be the big changes in our industry that would change scholarly communications. And the Delphi method is in itself fairly simple. The whole idea is that you bring experts together. We consider all these representatives of our member companies as the experts. And what you do is the experts share their views, look at the differences, look at the commonalities, start to cluster certain ideas, group them, and in 3 or 4 different discussion rounds, you try to come to some convergence and try to find out where the consensus is on which main trends. So that's what we are doing here. You see it here in action. We use very old-fashioned flip charts, as you see. The room is literally full of views and of lively discussions, people debating, disagreeing, agreeing, adding new perspectives, etc. It's also always a fun exercise to do. This year we'll be experimenting with an online version of it. I'm very curious to see how it works out. And well, as I say, it will be a bit of an experiment, but I hope that next year we can again show you an interesting trends overview. So this process, I told you we've been doing this for several years now. My guess is that this year's edition is the 10th or 11th edition. And I would like to show you a few previous ones so that you get some idea of the whole series. And as I said before, we don't write full text reports, we make one picture. And on this slide, you see the 5 previous versions of the 5 previous years. And as you can see, because this year we're looking at 2024, the posters always had a year in the future. So now it's interesting to see whether we were right or wrong. And let's look at the one of 5 years ago, which was STM Tech Trends 2019. So the predictions then have or have not become reality now. And you see that picture on the left top hand of the slide. And that was like a clockwork with a lot of cogs gripping into each other. Moving each other, the centerpiece there was research data and how research data and other new research outputs would become more and more important in communicating science. And it would lead, you see that in the blue cog in the middle, into a system where the article would function in a hub and spoke model and would become one of the elements linked to many other elements that come out of research. And also you see that partly in the green cogs below it, how that would also influence reputation management of researchers and metrics by which performance of researchers and research institutes could be measured. And the main theme there was that data would be considered a first-class research object. Well, and we're now 4 or 5 years later, and see what happened. STM started a research data year, which has become very popular, and also research funders are promoting the sharing of research data a lot. So there we were definitely on track. Then you see the middle picture on the top, which was a wild sea full of different currents, currents also going against each other, influence each other. And that picture was the combination of data plus artificial intelligence. How that would create a whole new environment for research. And also where you see that somewhere in the middle of that picture, where automated knowledge creation becomes a new option. And on that wild sea, you see a little ship, a little sailing boat, and that represents the publishers trying to sail this wild sea and using all the new opportunities that these currents provoke. And I already seen a little bit of the talk that comes after my talk, which is from Professor Kitano. And he will say a lot more about the importance of AI and about automated knowledge creation. So I think also there we were pretty nicely on track. The right one, the right picture you see is how do you call it? Is like your pachinko. It is a pinball machine. And the idea of using a pinball machine was because technology provides so many new opportunities. And it's really a matter of how the ball will touch one of the elements on the pinball machine, defining which direction things take. So there's a bit of a chance element there. At the same time, everybody who's played pinball knows that the player who plays it can influence where the ball is going. Also, you can lose the ball, so that pinball machine has dangerous areas which have to do with fake information, fake science, also computer security, security breaches and things like that. Okay, we move on to the left one at the lower side, which puts artificial intelligence completely at the center. The motto there was entering the AI era, and combining creative humans with smart machines. And in the inside of the head, you see the head of a publisher. The inside of the head, you see how different parts of the brain make all kinds of suggestions how AI could be used in the publishing process. And outside the head, you see all the challenges and opportunities that publishing was facing or is facing. And I think, that was the tech trends for 2022. I think that whole AI era is indeed moving much closer. Then I come to the one of last year, which is at the bottom in the middle, where we had a rock band. And the rock band tried to express how in a multi-stakeholder community with many different tunes and many different voices, we still all try to sing the same song. And the song that the hit that this rock band tries to play is the Open Science song, where we also work on shared and collaborative infrastructure to make all of that possible. So here you see a little overview of how in the past our future forecasts have worked. And I hope that brings you the appetite to start our galactic journey of this year. And I would like to zoom in on several different parts of this picture. And we start, of course, in the middle, at the central point of gravity, which is the user. And the user has has 7 subtrends around her or him. explaining why this user is different. Because one of the questions you could ask, or that could come up in your mind now, is if you bring together such a group of clever people year after year, why does it take them 10 years to find out that there's actually a user and that the user plays such a central role? Well, this could be a very good question. And maybe I should confess that our group in the past, maybe we were focused too much on technology and trying to find the answer there. But there's also another reason why we're focusing on the user now, and that is the strong conviction that a new kind of user is entering the workspace, and that is Generation Z. The people who are now 25 to 30 years old, they only know the world with internet. They've never lived in a world without internet, like some of us. And they are used to getting information in a really easy way. They're used that everything is available under their fingertips, and also that things will be brought to them in a very easy and personalized way. And that is what we try to express in these inner circles that define the new user. And on top, you see the expression, let me do it my way, because that is how the new generation wants to use information. They also say, treat me as a diginative. Treat me as somebody who's used to get everything digital and everything on the devices that they have at hand. Also, show me I can trust you. And prove the research integrity to me. There we move a little bit from the general internet to the academic sphere of research. Then you see a circle that says, give me control over my data. And that is, of course, where we have all the research data related elements. And another circle that says, make AI work for me. And then make things really easy for me. So what the group in their forecast was defining is that these are the subtrends that tell us how the user will want to get their information. And we've tried to explain that a little bit more, expanded on that in the knowledge graph. And in the knowledge graph, you see the stars connected as all the elements that relate to each other and that play a role. Let me take you through them. We start at the top. So in the pink sphere, the pink stars are all about, let me do it my way. And an important hub there is precision information. Because we all know that people, especially in research, if they struggle with one thing, it's the overload of information. And they want precision information targeted to their own profiles. And that can be, in general, personalization. You see a star about that, but also personal suggestions, customized learning tools, because people often move on from one area to another. They want to get new topics that fit into their sphere, and they want to find new collaborators. That is something on which they can be given suggestions. And also there's a little star that says micro publications, and micro publications are the elements that you find in longer publications, because not everybody wants to read that whole book or that whole article. They just want to get the little element in there, a certain assertion, a certain piece of evidence that exactly fits what they are working on. You see another big hub in the pink area, which is about instant gratification. Because if the new generation says, let me do it my way, they are actually saying, let me do it my way now. They don't want to wait for things. You know, when I was doing research long ago, we went to the library for our literature, and if it wasn't in that library, it had to come from another library, and it was quite normal to deliver your list of literature wishes, and it would take at least a week before you had what you needed to have. But right now on the internet, people want it here and they want it now. Also, they want to choose and authorize what they get. And they want to get all research artifacts, not just the article, but also the data, the code, the graphics, the software, the information about the lab equipment, etc., etc. And now we're moving into the blue area. They want to get it on all their devices. They want to get it on demand, and they want all kind of new outputs. And if we talk about new outputs, you should think of video, of images, far less text. I think that's something that's very noticeable in the young generation. They use far more video and they don't want to read so much. Also, they want a fast UX, a fast user interface, a fast user experience. And let me move a little bit to the right. You also see there FOMO, fear of missing out. So anything that is relevant for them, they really want to get it delivered. Also, the Generation Z wants to work along their own values and their own norms. And also they have their own ethics. For example, climate consciousness is far more important. I guess we can also add examples like movements about Black Lives Matter or Me Too. There's a lot of sensitivity to the right behavior and applying the right ethics among Generation Z. Okay, on to the next area of stars. What you see, if we move into the yellow area, it is all about trust and about trust verification, because we've started to find out that the internet is dominated by some of the big platforms, and not everybody, not all of us know exactly what they're doing with our data, our usage data, and how our profiles are being used, and also how the information that comes to us is being filtered or not. So it has a little yellow star there that says, explain the context. No echo bubbles. You know, an echo bubble is where you get repeated your own preferences more and more. So you start to lose the sight on new elements of or new sources of information. Therefore, the algorithms that filter the information should be transparent. There should be no bias. And where bias or algorithms are not completely fair, there should be more regulation and collective action. Also in the trust area, you find a big hub about platform responsibility. That's the platform responsibility of the big tech. You see a small star there that says the big tech backlash. But of course, it's also platform responsibility for STM publishers who operate big platforms. And there you see a little star about how can I share it? Because people want to share things and they want to have clarity on how they can do that and what is allowed and what is not allowed. They also want to be secured about the cyber security, that there will not be breaches, no theft of information, and that piracy should be fighted. From there, we move from the yellow area to the white area, and the white area is about research integrity. Personally, that is my favorite area of this picture, because I think that research integrity is now the big theme, not just in academia, but also something where publishers can prove better and better that they have a real role in the whole ecosystem of scholarly communication. And you see some big hubs there, one about certified tools. This is about information tools that should be certified, but it's also about tools that can help certify the truthfulness of information and the integrity of information. So you see some small stars around that, about trust and integrity, about verify, about digital protection, about transparency, a little star that says end fake news. Of course, that also means end fake science. and prove the quality. And another big star there is about transparent peer review. STM is running a project right now on making peer review more transparent. You will hear much more about it in the next few months. And transparent peer review is also a core element in research integrity. Another big star there is open science. And of course, research and integrity are very closely connected. They're like brother and sister. And open science has one of the big aims to make research integrity far more visible. And some stars there are about not just about transparency in general, but also about reproducibility, about manipulation detection, and of course about research data. And there we move over to the red area in our galaxy, the red stars. And the red stars are centered around the theme, give me control over my data. And as Ian already alluded in his talk, we're all a source of data, researchers and their research and their projects, they're all sources of data. We all leave data traces everywhere. Therefore, data security is very important. And it all centers about a big hub there around FAIR data. And just to repeat, FAIR stands for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reproducible data. And you also see a little star that says share link site. And that is, of course, the motto of the STM Research Data Year, for which you also see a little star. And we are convinced that if publishers help promote the sharing, linking, and citing of data by researchers, that can have an enormous effect on the availability of research data. And what we learned from some of our larger members who started doing this a few years ago already, that actually the number of publications that have data sets combined with them, that can actually triple. For some of the big publishers, we saw that that in 2017, the availability of data with publications happened in roughly 7% or so of the manuscripts, and they saw that go up to more than 25%. So that is really a huge potential on which we like to work, and as I also mentioned before, we very much like to work with that with the research funders on that. Okay, more in the data area. Another big hub is data and AI. You'll hear much more about that after my talk, so I won't expand on that too much. But that is where really the promise of smart science lies and of automated knowledge creation. And from there, we move to the orange area in our picture. And the orange area is about artificial intelligence, that big, big promise. When I was a publisher myself in the 80s and 90s of last century, one of my biggest journals was actually the Journal of Artificial Intelligence. And in those days, it was really very much maybe a science fiction topic, more theoretical and really a promise for the future. But of course, here we made a circle that says, make AI work for me. And that is also the difference of the picture that we made 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, which was all about artificial intelligence. There it was also very much about the promise, but we're now moving into reality. And therefore, the emphasis here is on practical AI and something where AI can really help researchers, but also can help publishers. And you see a big star there that says AI supporting humans, because some people are thinking about a future where AI takes over from humans. But the strong conviction in our brainstorm group is that AI gives us tools that make life for humans easier, but you still need the human eye and the human decision at the end of AI analytics. So You also see that expressed in a few smaller stars, for example, AI to verify trust, AI for peer review, meaning that AI will not take over all the peer review, but that it can take over some of the laborious tasks in peer review. For example, checking all the references, or checking that there was no plagiarism, or checking that there was no manipulation of the data, or no alteration in the images and things like that. So publishers should, in the next few years, put a lot of effort in AI services development, in make sure that they provide author services that are driven by AI, that they provide intelligent simplification of tasks, AI-based translations, for example, and all of that centers around another important star, which is called AI ethics. Because when we apply AI, we should never forget that we want to make sure what the algorithm behind all of it does, and whether data are used in an ethical way. Actually, STM also has an important working group on AI ethics right now to make sure that we do that in the right way. Okay, with that, I come to the final area in my picture. That is the green area. And this area more or less helps us to round the picture. And in that area, it is all about making things easy for me. And that is also what all the other circles of subtrends try to express. All these elements, and let me do it my way, make AI work for me, give me control over my data. All those circles have one thing as their purpose, and that is make things easy for the end user. And that is why the end user is in the middle. And what are the things the end user wants? An end user wants very easy and simple access. That is where it all starts. So STM is very involved in an initiative, a multi-stakeholder initiative about seamless access. We work together with the libraries, we work together with internet providers to set up federated identity management. That will go live. It's now in beta phase. That will go live at the end of this year, early 2021. So I'd say stay tuned, follow what's happening there. And other important stars in this area of making things easy have to do with personal profiling. That will help in easy sharing, in making a more personalized user experience, in things like no search, just deliver. You know, a lot of information products center around search solutions and making it easy to search. But actually, if you know somebody's profile well, they shouldn't need to search. They should get the information exactly as they want it. And then I want to highlight one last big star, and that is I have different roles. Because you heard me speak about the end user, and several times I use the user as the researcher, because the researcher is the main user of most of the academic information. But of course, everybody has different roles, and also researchers have different roles. Many researchers also work in teaching, or they do the management of their faculty, or they apply for research grants. They also have a private life, so they can be a patient, or a concerned parent, or a parent wanting to know about the disease of one of their children. And they can also be practitioners, doctors, engineers, lawyers. People have many different roles in which they want to consult academic information. And that is something that we as information providers have to keep in mind, that people, when they look for information, that they do that from different roles. And that is also exactly what brings us back to where we started this galactic journal, and that is let me do it my way. It has to do with precision information, personalization, personal suggestions, and that is where it all comes together. So with that, I would like to conclude my talk. I'm going to bring you back to the overall picture. Here you see it in English. I guess there should be, yes, here's the Japanese version of it. We started on top, let me do it my way, and then clockwise we moved along. Treat me as a diginative, show me I can trust you, prove the research integrity, let me control my data, make AI work for me, and make things really, really easy for me. And that is how the user likes to get it. Thank you very much. Arigato goyaimasu. And I hope there are any questions. Thank you.